You're watching another Nerd Stalker interview.
All right, we're live. Welcome to another Nerd Stalker interview. Good morning. This is Greg Laurie, aka Social Greg, on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today, I am pleased to talk again with founder Robert Pratton of the Transmedia Storytelling Limited, which makes a product called Conductor, and it's not a wire conductor. It's actually a guy conducting. I think that's what it means, really. It's a subscription-based service that allows anyone to write, manage, deliver, and measure engaging interactive social entertainment that spans online, and mobile platforms. And I had to say that in one breath. I had to take a deep breath for that. Anyway, today we're talking about Conductor's upcoming conference in Transmedia called the Conductor Conference, to be held in October 2014 in London, Great Britain. And we're trying to get the word out early here on the Nerd Stalker to book your cheap flights for this conference. I think that's what we're trying to do here. So let me tell you a little bit about Robert. Robert has established himself as a thought leader in the field of transmedia storytelling through major contributions to this ever-evolving field in the areas of new business models, development processes, and documentation. So he's also an author, if you want to learn about transmedia, getting started in transmedia storytelling, a practical guide for beginners. Yeah, I guess you got to write a book, maybe Transmedia for Dummies next, or something like that. Robert? Okay, so let's get started. Good morning, Robert, live from London, man. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing very well, and thank you for getting up early to share this moment with me.
You know, yeah, you could tell out here in my window it's dark. I don't even have the sun out right now, but that's okay. At Nerd Stalker we accommodate anybody. So anyway,
That's very good. And so you should notice that we do have the sun, because every time I'm in San Francisco, everyone reminds me how much it rains in London, and half of them have never been. And look, it's sun. It is actually sunny outside. That's not like a video. I'm not against a green screen somewhere. It is actually real sun.
Well, my friend, I think that's your good karma in London showing there. So anyway, do you want to add anything about yourself that I didn't cover in that intro?
No, I think you covered it all there, Greg. Everything you wanted to know and more. That's very kind. Thank you.
Just copied from the Transmedia Storytelling Limited About Us page. But anyway, so anyway, let's talk about transmedia. I think let's tell the audience in your mind what transmedia is. I think that's a word that goes around, and I'm not sure everyone really understands that.
Well, I think, and it's like, in a nutshell, it's telling a story across multiple platforms. I mean, that's the simplest definition. And I think sometimes you see lots of multi-platform projects, but if they're not telling a story, and I think if the experiences across these platforms don't add up to something that's greater than the sum of the parts, then that's probably not transmedia storytelling. So, if you take a commercial and you run it on TV and you take the same commercial and you make an ad banner out of it, then that's not transmedia storytelling. But if you can, if you can create a character that people want to get to know a little bit better, and you populate that character's life across different platforms, then that probably is getting towards transmedia storytelling.
I understand it a little bit better now. I have a couple clients that are on the movie side, so maybe they need to take advantage of that. Okay, well, let's get into the Conductor Conference. Coming up in October 2014 in London, and and let's talk about who's it's for. So it isn't just for Conductor Conference customers, right?
No, it's for everybody really that wants to create engaging stories. So anybody that as an audience that they need to entertain or get their attention, then this is an opportunity for them to come along and either share their experiences or listen to other people's experiences of things they've done. It's primarily aimed for creative people, so we're looking at the process and of sort of developing these types of stories, integrating the technology if there's a technology component. We've got some little bits about business, but it's not one of these conferences that's aimed at sort of senior vice presidents, because there are a lot of conferences that are kind of sell themselves on all the famous sort of speakers. You've got the head of this network and the head of that network, but they're kind of so removed away from the actual creative sort of spark piece of the puzzle that we felt like, you know, we want to run our own conference where we can get creators together to talk about, you know, how do we develop these stories, and you know, there's all this new technology. How do we, you know, what is it that technology that we can use to tell stories differently, you know, and so that's what we're trying to do.
What, is this the first conference that you're holding, or is it?
It is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, no, it's the first one. Yeah, it's the first one we've done. So I'm kind of more used to speaking at conferences than I am to organising them.
Yes, yes.
And this is our first one, but I think the plan is that we'll make this an annual event. You know, and it's an opportunity for people to, you know, to sort of share their projects and get together with others. Because you could be working in a town somewhere and think, no one really understands me. Like, I'm the only one who's talking about transmedia storytelling. Everyone else I speak to, like, just don't get it. And it's a way to find your community, really.
Yeah, no, I, you know, there's a couple of transmedia groups here in San Francisco. You know, some active more than others, but you know, I don't know if they really touch the genre like what you guys are going to do. So what the interesting things are you going to be planning at this conference for people to see if they attend?
So we've got two sort of primary streams. One is like an academic stream,
Ooh.
and the other one is let's say like the commercial stream. So we've got some big projects, stuff that we've worked on. For example, this Game of Thrones experience we built for Canal Plus in Spain. We've also got a publishing example that we did for Harlequin, Mills and Boon. And then we've got some independent creators talking about work they've done on pervasive games and how they've, because one of the things people often say is, well, transmedia sounds very good, but how do I make money out of it? And so we have a creator, Johnny Virgo, who's a rap artist, and he's making money from transmedia storytelling. So he's here to sort of reveal the secrets. If you look at, like, I always like the American book titles, you know, how to make it big in, you know, transmedia storytelling. So
no, you know, so we only buy those transmedia for dummy type books out here.
That's not what I see when I go through the airport. There's always those books trying to lure me in. There's another management guide. Anyways, so we've got that, and then on the academic stream, we've got some quite leading sort of minds and researchers in that area. And what we've said to them is, look, this is for people that are creating stuff. So if you're going to give a talk, make it interesting and make it relevant, so that you pick areas of research that you've been involved in and show these creators how they can inform their stories and experiences from this research that you've done. So, for example, one of the sort of like academic stars that we've got coming is Liz Evans, and she's really well known for the work she does in TV with cross-platform storytelling. There, you know, like with audience engagement and user-generated content, all this type of stuff, and how that's built around the TV shows. So there's some good stuff going. We've got people from the Netherlands. FA and Hilla have been doing a study on audience engagement and how do we measure engagement and how do we create experiences that are engaging. So it's quite, yeah, should be interesting. A good mix really of, let's say, performance type transmedia storytelling, as well as online. And we've got Jill Golick, who's head of the Writers Guild of Canada, and she's talking about how you sort of write for interactive stories, because she's got a very good, well, sort of award-winning show, Ruby Sky PI, that was started life as a web series and it's been picked up for TV. So she's going to be sort of letting us into the secrets of how you write for things like that. Because I think you know, people often talk about TV as being a writer's medium and film as being a director's medium.
Yes.
I kind of think that transmedia could be a writer's medium if they were to get into it. And I think right now there are a handful of writers who've embraced it and they're doing very well. And there's a lot more that could get into it, but they're a little bit reluctant. You know, like maybe they think, well, it could be there's no money in it. There could be one concern I had, but I think sometimes it's a bit of an aversion to audience participation. They're used to maybe, this is a little bit of a cliche, but there's some truth in it, that they're used to writing a book or a movie and then just putting it out there. And transmedia and writing for transmedia is about looking for ways for the audience to participate. So it's much closer in some ways to writing for games than it might be writing for books, because you're looking at, well, how can I reveal this story through interaction in some way?
That's a good point, actually. What I noticed in, at least here in San Francisco, there's some, real live games, actually, where there's a lot of interactivity. But, when you look at the demographic there, 20 to 30-year-olds maybe. So, maybe the generations that are just kind of coming up and aging slowly towards, this interactivity. But I agree with you. I think, the thing is that, as a group as a whole in the world, we're used to absorbing the media and not interacting with it, right? So there's some teaching you have to do with people to interact, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is as well, people are used to interacting with each other. And you can create a story world that invites people to create, social connections and to interact with each other. But it's knowing how to do that. You know what I mean? Like I could sit here and say, well, what you do is you create a story world that invites people to find, sort of soulmates. But how do you actually go about that? How do you sit down and write that sort of story? And how do you, invite people to take part in it and feel comfortable about doing that? And that's one of the things we're going to look at the conference, so people will come along and get these types of insights.
Yeah, let's also. Well, do you guys are having any panel discussions planned at the conference?
Not so much. Where we've got panels, it's more like an interview. Like so that because what we really want to do is, it's not really a talking shop. It's an opportunity to sort of transfer some learning. So like sometimes I don't know if you've been to like South by Southwest, for example, and you go along to some of these talks and they've got like fantastic titles, and I think this is top of mind right now because the panel pickers come out and we've put 2 panel picks forward, one for Game of Thrones and one for the chat series. And some of them, like some of the talks have like fantastic titles, and then you go there and I open my notebook and I'm like, right, I'm ready to go. And then like 40 minutes goes by and the pen has not touched the paper because it's all fluff. And it's like, dude, come on. Like I could have gone to like a million other talks. I came to this one and I got no takeaways. And so this conference is all about the takeaways.
Oh, like, that totally sucks.
Well, you must have been there with that.
Oh yeah, I've been to cover these conferences. The PR people entice me to go cover it. Hey, we really want Nerd Stalker there, and you'll find some great takeaways, some great interviews, and like I love that. I love that thing what you just described. Like I've had my pen in hand for 40 minutes and I haven't written anything.
I know. And then some of the panels you see, it can take like 10 minutes for each panelist to go through their CV. All they've done. So you've got 4 panelists. That's 40 minutes over.
Yeah.
And then you've only got 5 minutes now for questions.
Well, I could have done that for your intro if you wanted me to, but I didn't think that was going to be worth it at this point. But I could have gone through your whole bio in 40 minutes, I think. But anyway, let's also talk about this Conductor Skunkworks thing. I thought that was interesting when I actually went through the conference proceedings and stuff like that. Tell us more about Conductor Skunkworks.
So there's a lot of things going on there, really. I think people that are already familiar with Conductor know it for the things we've done to date, like creating characters, having them interact on social media, doing email and so on. But we've also we also work as a back end for other front-end technologies. It could be apps, it could be Arduino, NFC devices and so on. So with the Skunkworks, it's an opportunity for us to show, hey, we are a platform that's invisible to audiences, and we connect all the dots on the audience journey. Actually, I've got, just out of screen, I've got this light bulb here, which is, inside here is one of these Philips Hue light bulbs, and it will change colour based on the instructions that you send to it. So we can, using Conductor, you can say, based on the sentiment of, on social media, change the color of this, bulb. Or, for example, I'm wearing a Fitbit. I don't know if you can see that in the thing.
Nice, yes.
And you could, through the Fitbit API, connect that into Conductor, and then we could say, right, these teams have got to walk so much of a distance, so they've got to be active in a certain way, and that will unlock video content, or it could be unlock, some other kind of document. And what we see is that with the Internet of Things and all these other, wearables and so on, there are so many storytelling opportunities that I think a lot of creative people are not quite so familiar with. And so at the conference, the Skunkworks is a bit like the Apple Genius Bar. So we'll have an area with some of the like tech demo things that we've got working, and it's an opportunity for people to come and talk about their projects. And if they've got any anxiety about, I don't know, technology in some way, then we'll have our sort of technical wizard Eduardo on hand to sort of talk that through, which you can do in English or Spanish, whichever's your favourite language.
Well, that would work here in California. English and Spanish would work. Exactly. English and Spanish would work. Well, are you planning on doing any live streaming of the event at all, or it's pretty much a closed conference?
I don't think we're going to live stream it, but we will record it. So the plan is that we'll have videos available afterwards. We're also going to have like conference proceedings. So Sarah Atkinson, Dr. Sarah Atkinson, who's curating the academic part of it, that was her idea, and Vicky Callahan, who's working with us. So they're going to put together a document which will be a nice takeaway, of all the presentations and the different papers and so on.
No, that's pretty cool about what you talked about, though, going back to Conductor Skunkworks. I think, you don't appreciate, like, whenever something's in the back end, I think when I go to, like, conferences or even tech meetups and people talk about enterprise or back end, none of us really appreciate that because we can't touch it, right? I mean, this guy comes up to the stage and talks about, here's the great scripts you could write, and we're all our eyes are glazing over because I think we understand the concept, but we don't know how to use it because we're not developers or we're not on the back end or something like that. So I'm glad you guys are going into that. I think it's kind of important to show how the technology could be used, right?
Exactly, and you don't need to be a coder. So, for example, we have demo apps that you can use. So, say for example, you're a creative person and you want to develop an experience, and typically you might play test it first, and then if it works, or let's say you had big ambitions, so you could play test something, then go to Kickstarter to get the funding to, like, quotes, do it for real. So we have demo apps where you can sort of put in details for your project, and then you've got an app that works for your experience. And the stuff that you do in Conductor doesn't need any coding. That's just regular sort of English language stuff, and it is English language right now, not Spanish. But and then once you've got something working, you can then approach a developer and say, look, this is the demo app I've got. All the code is open source. Just take that from the Conductor Skunkworks page at GitHub and develop like a custom app for me with the right skin and the other things that are appropriate to my experience. And you're already sort of 90% of the way there. So I think it's, and if you work for an agency, let's say you work for an agency and you've already got coders in house, of course the first thing a coder is going to say is, oh, I could develop that. Why go to this platform when I could just as easily, like, knock this together myself? But we have all the what do you call it, like all the metrics, all the data login and so on. You can separate the activities between technologists and creatives. So you can have somebody go in, set up the logic, and you can say, right, this email goes here, or this piece, this is where I need the badge content or something. And then somebody with less sort of technical skills can go in and update the project, and it's all live all the time. So once you're in operation and you want to change something, you can do that inside Conductor without having to rebuild the app. So there's like so many benefits to it, but it's a different way of thinking, because there hasn't been a platform like Conductor before, at least in the entertainment space. And so I think part of our sort of evangelism is really talking about like trying to like get the concept over to people, because sometimes it's a bit, it's not something they're immediately familiar with.
Well, I think people are used to working in singular or maybe even dual media, but not in an interactive way, as you said. So I think that's where, maybe we need to do a follow-up interview just on what transmedia is or something like that. I mean, just to, not necessarily just to inform the people what you could do with it. I think, applications are always the ones that kind of break the ice with a lot of people, right? If they could see, oh, that's how it's and I usually, at least for me, I'm a very visual person, so I think that something that's shown to me that actually does something is really kind of cool. But anyway, I think kind of explain what the conference was. So I think we'll end the interview here. Is there anything else you want to tell the Nerd Soccer audience? About the conference?
Yeah, come over to London. It's not always raining. We are predicting.
You see in the back
good
there.
weather. Yeah, exactly. Like, come to London. No, it'd be good. It'd be good because it could well be that you get a European perspective on transmedia, because I know that my friends over in the States that work in transmedia, they're already kind of saying, well, the word's quite muddy and no one quite really understands what it is, and for them it's almost like, when there's people that get into cool bands, and as soon as the bands become popular, they're like, they're rubbish now. Like, they were only good in the early days. Their first albums are great, but now they're popular, I stop listening to them. And I think in the States, because you're kind of, you were the early adopters of transmedia, there's a lot of people who already feel like transmedia's at its day. But in Europe and South America, for example, and in Eastern Europe, it's still, people are not hung up on the word, and they're just doing some interesting things that you might not have thought of.
Well, yeah, let's do a follow-up interview on transmedia. I think it would be just in general. Maybe we'll take one of your case studies. I think you're going to do at the conference. Maybe we'll do that right as a lead into your conference,
very cool.
And just talk about it, because I think people are taking advantage of it. I think in a lot of ways, and maybe you could show them how easy it is really with using Conductor, that it's a difficult, I think their eyes glaze over. I said, oh man, it took me about 10 years to write this game, and you're saying that I need to put it on multiple platforms or something? They're like, I'm not gonna go do that. But I think what you're saying, that's why you guys created Conductor, is to make that easier for them to do, right?
Totally. It's cross-platform from birth.
and I think it's like anything else. We do. I've been a product developer, so I love products, but it's always easier if you design the architecture up front than trying to add it in later. I don't know how that is, but maybe Conductor is a little bit easier because it allows you to do that, even if you have something already. But I know from a development standpoint, if you don't put a lot of that infrastructure in the beginning, it's hard to add it in later. But maybe you could show us how easy it is with Conductor.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, thanks for the interview, Robert. I appreciate it. So how can listeners get a hold of you, and maybe how can they register for the Conductor Conference in October?
So I'm on Twitter as Rob Pratton, so it's easy to find. And the Conductor Conference is conductorconference.com, all one word. And Conductor is spelt with 2 T's and an R. So
that's
like
Conducttr, my friends.
Yeah, that's it. Like conduct transmedia. That's how you should imagine it. If you spell it with 2 R's, it's like being a pirate. Conductor. That's not the way. It's the other way. 2 T's, 1 R.
You must get that a lot. Anyway, yeah.
Only from pirates.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks again. Thanks for spending some time with us here on Nerd Stalker. Anyway, that was Robert Pratton, the co-founder, and Chief Bottle Washer of Transmedia Storytelling Limited, who develops Conductor. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Thanks, Robert. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye.